thank you for the 2000 thing. That was very nice. So, hello, good evening, everyone. I'm going to review the topic a little bit later. So first, I'll start with a question. Do you guys like to read science fiction? Okay, I'll take it as an overwhelming yes. All right. Have you noticed an interesting fact that lately there are less and less science fiction novels published compared to a decade or 2 decades ago? Have you asked yourself what happened to the golden age of science fiction? I've been talking to some friends recently, and we came up with this theory. We looked at when the best and most popular authors put their creative energies into writing science fiction, and there was a golden age of science fiction. It was also called new wave science fiction, starting probably in the 60s and going until the 80s. And we correlated that to the technological advances that made possible human flight into space. In the beginning of the 60s, we shot a Sputnik into space. A little bit later, we had a man on the moon. And that energized the whole planet. People across different countries were watching TV and listening to the radio as more and more progress was made in that direction. Writers started to anticipate the next steps. Actually, it was not just the writers and the creative people, it was the scientists and NASA people that estimated that it would be another 15 years before we have a manned flight to Mars. And the feasibility of having a human base on the moon was estimated at about 20 to 30 years span. So what happened? Why are we not meeting at the campus of Moon 2034, for example, and we are here on the planet Earth? Well, there was a setback, actually a couple of setbacks as scientists started to discover. Besides physical limitations, such as the energy necessary to take certain weight out into space and then bring that weight back to Earth, and the limitations in computers, which have been largely overcome, there were a set of biochemical limitations related to how we are structured as human beings that are encoded in our genes. There are many such limitations, one of which is a human into open space would start to lose bone mass because of the lack of gravity. One of the early astronauts who spent, I think, 64 days into open space lost 8% of his bone mass. Imagine what would happen if of you would be 3 years or 5 years into open space. Another limitation is the fact that the electromagnetic field, Professor Yordanov, that encompasses our planet is actually shielding us from a constant bombardment of solar radiation. And people that spend time outside this protective shield are radiated. And if you spend extended periods of times, you would fry as an egg. It's just unavoidable, etc., etc., etc. So gradually, the initial enthusiasm about sending people to Mars and other planets and building extra, stellar bases started to wane away. Well, I'm not here to talk to you about space. As I was presented, I'm a serial entrepreneur, which is a short step away from being a serial killer, serial goes. And I've been setting up various businesses that actually riding on the wave of a different revolution that we have today. And this is the digital revolution. It is not as flashy as the space revolution back in the 70s. We don't have rockets that we shoot into space with a lot of flames and smoke and people watching, and it is a quiet revolution, but it is very pervasive. It is everywhere. Anyone that doesn't have a mobile phone here? Oh yes, 1, 2, 3. All right, okay, not everything is lost, but still, a large majority of you have mobile phones. I would bet a large majority of you have smartphones that are using the broadband to actually not only talk to other people, but also browse the web and exchange documents, etc., etc., etc. Digital revolution, and I will be focusing a little bit more on the digital communication tools that we have, enabled building businesses like my company or a set of companies. They all share a similar structure. We have a development office in Sofia, and we have our sales and marketing people and client relations people next to where our clients are, in London, New York, Hong Kong, various places around the world. In a sense, we are like the East Indian company. We are exploiting abundant resources where they're cheap and selling them where they're expensive. In our case, we're not trading in spice or opium. We are trading with brains. So, I don't know if it's good or bad. I would rather be in the opium trade, by the way. It's, you know, what can you do? Anyways, in order to develop our products, and this is our basic setup, we would have distributed teams. We would put a developer or a couple of developers in Bulgaria working in close cooperation with sales engineers, product designers, and business analysts from wherever our clients are. So we can design the next level of products. They're developed in Sofia, but they're checked wherever they will be sold or installed or implemented. And all of that development requires a lot of iteration and a lot of collaboration. None of that would have been possible without cheap and affordable digital communication. Well, communication was available 20 or 30 years ago, but it was not cheap. Today, you put on Skype, you can do video or voice over the internet. It is pervasive, it is everywhere. I just came back from some jungle places in Thailand, and there you have broadband. I had it on my mobile, so I'm always connected. It's everywhere. When we started a decade ago, I was a big optimist, and I thought that the sky was the limit. I would envision not only our distributed companies working and growing, but also I would envision myself and the other people telecommuting, teleworking from their homes. And that is a vision that is widely shared by a lot of people today. I talk to a lot of young entrepreneurs, people that do their startups, and they always come with the same premise. I live in Vienna, but I want to get an engineer in Sofia and probably a designer in France, and I want to put them together in a virtual space, and it's going to be great, right? Now, what I've come to share with you today is that it's not great. And there is actually an invisible barrier to making the best out of this presumably very open and connected world. And this barrier is, again, probably encoded into our biochemical structure, into our genes. Well, first let me give you the problem that we started to encounter over time. At the beginning, we had to develop simple products. As our markets matured, we had to dedicate more people and build more sophisticated, more complex products. And we anticipated that where it would take a couple of people, a couple of weeks to build one unit of a software product, to build 2 units, it would take a proportionately. Surprise, surprise. To get to 2 units, you had to throw probably 3 to 4 times the efforts and the money. And the more we had to sophisticate, or the more complex challenges we had to solve, the effort and the resources started to increase in a gigantic geometrical progression, to a point where, to my surprise, it was actually more efficient to get a team of people and fly them over the ocean, and they would basically solve a problem in a matter of hours or maybe a day, rather than keep them separated, talking and Skyping and exchanging documents, etc., for months and months and not getting anything done. Not only that, it was very expensive and very slow. It was also very frustrating to everybody involved. And work should be fun, right? If you're in the opium trade, the answer is yes. Software? Nah. So, there are various explanations why this geometric progression starts to make more complex projects expensive and even impossible in a distributed workspace. The most popular theory is that the management sucks. And I'm not here to tell you that I don't suck. I won't deny it. But I have a different theory. So I'll entertain you with that. professional scientists, right? And what they did was they basically discovered that the way our biochemical system works is not a closed system. I've always thought of myself as of myself. So I have this package, and whatever happens, happens inside. In my brain, I know that for a lot of my emotions, like anger or happiness, empathy, fear, anxiety, etc., there are some hormones, some chemicals that are responsible, but I always believe that it's something that is really closed. It's a closed circuit. It happens inside. All right, maybe if I take some opium, it gets a little bit higher, but you get my point. Me is me. Now, those guys came up to say that it's not actually like that. They said that we are connected as human beings. And the people that are close to us, our friends, our beloved ones, our co-workers, we form an ecosystem. And our biochemical systems are very open and connected in real time. And if one person would come into the room with high levels of dopamine, which means he's very happy and blissful, that would affect the others, and their levels of dopamine would start to increase, vice versa. If you have some of the bad hormones that decrease your level of happiness, make you anxious and unhappy and frustrated, that would transfer to other people. And the way it works is almost magical. It works through face-to-face communication. It works through eye contact. So just by looking into the face of other people, we're able to read their emotions, understand a lot of nonverbal cues, and those nonverbal cues translate into actually regulating our biochemical system. That's fascinating, right? A lot of other research was done along those lines. Probably you've heard about the research about mothers and infants and how they form a closed systems. Small infants cannot regulate their biochemical systems. They need a parent that can soothe them by hugging them and talking to them and smiling, so their levels of anxiety start to decrease. If you leave a kid crying out, frustrated, it's going to spiral into a vicious circle, and kids just cannot get out of that loop. So you need a parent to transfer through face, through eye contact, and sedate the kid. So this is for kids, but we retain that ability throughout our mature lives. By the way, this limbic resonance is a trait that is characteristic not only of humans, but by all mammals. It's only reptiles and fish and some birds that don't have limbic resonance. I'm not going to talk to you about the structure of the brain. There is a triune brain. Well, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the structure of the brain, obviously. So there is this triune brain concept, which, at the base we have the brainstem, which is the reptilian brain. This is the oldest evolutionary level of the brain, and it's responsible for basic things like breathing, startle reflex, sex, territorial, feelings. And then on top of that, the evolution brought to us the limbic brain, or the mammalian brain. And this is where feelings like love and attachment reside. And then on top of that, we have the neocortex, which is the reasoning brain, which is abstraction, art, things like that. Who needs that when we have, you know what I mean. Anyways, when we communicate in our business day to day over email, over phones, over collaboration tools, and things like social networks, Facebook, for example, we lose all of that limbic resonance. And it doesn't seem much at first, but over time, and when people have to be tasked with very complex, very challenging problems, it starts to take its toll. And work starts to be not very efficient and starts to become very frustrating. So this is my observation that I wanted to share with you tonight. The future is not all bright. The possibility for you guys to sit into your sofas and work from home, enjoying, the panorama from your kitchen and having a nice cappuccino while solving some very complex political or social or scientific problems is not at hand. I would say that after playing with that digital world and making advances, we'll probably hit a wall, and that wall, at least in the businesses that I'm involved in, is not very far away. And I predict that there's going to be a flashback, and people will, at some moment, feel the total lack of emotion from working in distributed environment, from teleworking, and I hope that we come back to a state where we have more meaningful work, which is fun, which is not frustrating, and which is productive. So, since most of you are students here, and I would assume, it's a big assumption, that most of you are business administration students, and I would make the courageous, assumption that some of you are entertaining the thought of starting your own businesses. Here's my advice. If you want to do something great, try to get a bunch of bright people in a room together, and the sky is the limit. Split people apart, and results are going to be, well, at least not so great. And if the bottom line of what I'm saying today is that we are closer to monkeys than to robots, so be it. That's my belief. So thank you for your time.